It's tough now because the podcasters have become just ass kissers for the politicians, right? They don't challenge them. They just like, yeah, that's cool, right?
I didn't like Andrew Schulz having Trump on the pod because I go, well, you're not gonna talk to him about Epstein. You're not gonna talk to him about these things.
He is horrible.
If you have a presidential candidate or a major politician on your show and you do not f with them in any way, you're a podcaster. You're not a comedian.
You know when like you're hanging out with another comedian, he says the N-word around you for the first time?
Yeah.
I like that. That's a little trust that I'm in the circle.
Here we go. Let's talk about this real quick, okay? I'm not with that. What you guys are doing in Austin. It's becoming so hacky to me that
100%.
people, you guys use these words just for the shock factor.
100%.
It's like, I'm not into it.
What's something that people think is comedy that isn't comedy is just like pretty much whatever Joe Rogan's doing. I have seen drunk open micers who have never touched a microphone do better than his last like intentional special.
Remember when being associated with the Rogansphere worked in someone's favor? It just seems like more and more people are now lining up to publicly shit on everything it's become. And the wildest part is that the loudest critics aren't journalists, they're not politicians, they're not outraged woke Twitter mobs, they're comedians themselves, including people from inside the sphere. Okay, so first, the numbers, real quick, because you need to understand the size of this thing. Joe Rogan's podcast deal with Spotify, you know the story, hundreds of millions of dollars, yes. 14.5 million Spotify followers. The closest competitor is 3 times smaller. On YouTube alone, he's sitting near 20 million subscribers. His audience is about 80% male, over half between 18 and 34, and 54% of his weekly listeners told pollsters they were leaning Trump right before the 2024 election. So he's not just seen as a podcaster, he's a demographic, he's a political instrument. And for years, being in Rogan's orbit was the golden ticket for comedians.
All of a sudden, there's this thing that we start noticing, we call it the Rogan bump, where if you do Rogan, all of a sudden, next 6 months, all your shows are sold out immediately.
Does that still exist?
Yeah.
So you go on Rogan, you get the Rogan bump.
I've done Rogan a ridiculous amount of times.
So you're always getting a little Rogan bump.
Well, you're noticing it. The first time I ever did it, I got 6,000 Twitter followers that evening.
Right.
The next time I put my shirt on there, and I sold $25,000 worth of
shirt on there.
The machine shirt that I sold. I gave one to Joe. I said they're going to be on my website. And by the time I got home, my wife said, we just sold $25,000 worth of t-shirts.
Oh, $25,000 worth.
And then by the end of the year, we had sold 6 figures worth of t-shirts.
That's what they used to call the Rogan bump, and it was very real. But I guess sometimes what looks like a bump is actually the start of a cliff. Because somewhere between the Joe Rogan, who was this pot-smoking, UFC-loving dude who just wanted to have long, weird conversations, and the Joe Rogan who is photographed standing in the Oval Office while Trump signs executive orders, shit changed, and obviously comedians noticed. See, Rogan and a lot of people in his sphere started doing something that comedians historically have not done, which has become the thing they used to make fun of. They stopped challenging power and started servicing it. They stopped punching up and started pulling chairs out for the people at the top of the table.
Oh, is that your ass? Oh, closer to the hole, sir?
And now, some of the most respected voices in comedy are saying publicly that this was a betrayal of the entire art form. Let's start with Zach Galifianakis because his take on this shit is pretty spot on. Zach went on Conan O'Brien's podcast recently to promote some gardening show. Yes, a gardening show. Either way, he's somehow managed to absolutely torch the entire podcaster comedian expert complex.
That was particularly helpful to you when you did your famous Between Two Ferns interview with Obama, because you're the only person that gave him, I mean, I know that this in any way was just you doing your comedy, but you were so rude as that person. Right. I don't think anyone's talked to, certainly a sitting president, or even in this time, no one's talked about
well, all the podcasters that have had the president on now, they don't do their court gesture. They don't do it. They just, they suck up to him.
Yeah.
So the comedians that have had, that are podcasters that have had Trump on, they're not doing their job. That's not the job of a comedian. You are to challenge.
Yeah.
You are to make uncomfortable. You're not to sit there and fake laugh.
Yep.
That is not the job of the court jester.
Yeah.
Period. Actually, somebody yesterday was talking to me about that, about, political influence through comedy and all that stuff. I'm more interested in the comedy first. Whatever their motive is, fine, but the comedy has to come first. There's also the math of comedy to me sometimes, where the punching down that the right seems to do something, and I don't want to get political here, but that's not as funny to me as taking on the powerful. Like the math of it doesn't work for me. Like to take on some marginalized people, make fun of that. Listen, I'm all for humor. I can defend it, but that mathematically, that's why you don't see a lot of comedy that comes out of the right. It's hard to do. I'm not suggesting you cannot. It's just difficult to do because of the dynamics.
Yeah.
It's tough now because the podcasters have become just ass kissers for the politicians, right? They don't challenge them. That I don't want to do. Like we challenged Obama. We made it uncomfortable for him in a way that was done for comedic effect. This is my problem also with comedians. They became experts and podcasters. No offense, but Jesus Christ.
And look, the court jester comparison isn't new, but it's crazy accurate. The whole point of the court jester historically was that he was the only person allowed to tell the king he was an idiot. That was the job. Protected speech through comedy, ironically. And what these podcast bros have done is take that job description, wipe their asses with it, and become the king's hype men. That's not comedy, that's just PR. Now, Galifianakis is somewhat outside the Rogan world, right? So maybe you're thinking, well, that's easy for him to say. He doesn't have to worry about the crowd. So let's talk about Anthony Jeselnik, because he's not some woke comedian crying on NPR. This dude does dark comedy, like really dark comedy. And even he thinks the Rogansphere has gone off the rails.
I'm against cancel culture. Thank you. That's my impression of a shit comic trying to get on Rogan. I don't give a fuck about cancel culture. What I am sick of are comedians complaining about cancel culture. It's not that hard. Do your job. Apologies for being off for so long. I feel like we could have changed the outcome of the election if we had been here. I know a lot of podcasters got involved. Notice I said podcasters. I did not say comedians. A lot of podcasters got involved. Look, if you have a presidential candidate or a major politician on your show and you do not f- with them in any way, you're a podcaster. You're not a comedian. If you cancel an entire weekend of shows at the very last second so you can run yourself to Washington, D.C. to interview a vice presidential candidate and then post a picture of your arms around each other, you're not a comedian.
Now, moving on to comedian Caleb, he actually praised Rogan in the same breath he used to shit on his comedy. And that nuance matters because it brings the conversation to Joe Rogan is maybe a decent dude who accidentally became the sun at the center of a solar system of increasingly embarrassing bullshit.
What's something that people think is comedy that isn't comedy is just like pretty much whatever Joe Rogan's doing. I've said about Joe many times, I have a lot of respect for him, and specifically in the way that he puts on comics. He puts comics on his show that have nothing to offer him, and they are the only ones who will benefit from it. He puts on comics like Brian Simpson, who's a genius. He really, really, really supports other comics. I know that he's sent money to people when they're struggling. It's a thing that a lot of people who don't like Joe Rogan, as I do not, will not say about him, and I think it's unfair. He really supports other comics, and I think that's cool as hell. That being said, he's one of the worst stand-ups I've ever seen. Sorry to Joe. I'm sure the podcast is doing something for someone. The stand-up is horrible. I don't know if he was ever good, but he is present day one of the worst stand-ups. I mean, I have seen drunk open micers who have never touched a microphone do better than his last intentional special. I bet he's great at watching professional fighting. He is a very generous guy who helps out other comics. I like that about him. But good God, the guy shouldn't touch a stage.
Now, Galifianakis and Jeselnik are adjacent. They've looked at this world from the outside and talk shit. Understandable. It's actually expected. Now, what you don't expect is for the criticism to come from within the ecosystem, but that's exactly what's happening. Stavros Halkias, who has appeared on the Rogan podcast, who's been in that orbit, has been pretty clear about what he sees happening to right-wing comedy. He said the right is worse now than alt comedy ever was, that everyone who goes that way gets less funny, that there's not one actually funny person on that side of the comedy spectrum right now.
Everyone would make fun of alt comics for pandering, but it is literally worse on the right.
It's now worse.
So worse. And you know what? Alt comics weren't funny, and they were like, and like, you know, half of them were hacks, but some of them were doing imaginative things, and some of them were doing interesting things for the art form. No one is doing anything good on the right. No, there's not one actually funny, and everyone who goes that way gets less funny. They're literally being gayer than some of the gay alt comics. Like the guys that put on Tyler Fisher will put on lipstick and they'll dress like women. And it's like, that's gay. You are being gay, dude. And it's like, and I like gay comics, but you're making fun of them you go to the store to buy lipstick. They have opinions on the shade of lipstick that works for their lips, and they're making fun of trans people. It's like, what are we doing here, man?
Some of them are making it seem like they're on this like crusade to like break through, but they're getting like really rich off of it, which is like a weird thing. It's a weird thing of being like, I'm fighting for the thing, but if you won the fight that you're fighting for, then you would just be pointless. If that thing stopped, then what would you do? Then you would just have to be a comic.
They have nothing to say. They have nothing to say, right?
Yeah,
their acts stink. That's the thing. It's like their acts are mediocre at best.
Because I think if you sat them down, where it's like, what do you mean free speech? Like, what do you mean by that?
And what do you want to say?
Right. Like,
what's the thing you can't say?
Right. Because you're saying it. Because we're on your podcast. That has 100 one of the most popular podcasts. This is bigger than all media.
Without question.
And you're saying it.
What is the thing you can't say? I'd love to know.
Like, not only that, but if you stepped away from it, it's like, you're also selling out theaters.
Yeah, I know, dude. I know, it's crazy.
Like, what's the thing? What's the persecution that
It's crazy.
fighting?
And it's like, those are the same people that call people victims. It's like, you have gotten a victim mentality and become rich off it.
But the most damning voice of all is Shane Gillis, and this guy goes on Rogan's own podcast and says the crowd at the Comedy Mothership has swung too far. And then he describes the crowd, his crowd.
Pendulum's fully swung.
Maybe too far. Head down to the mothership, you go, oop.
Yeah.
Pendulum's maybe swung a little too far. Not everyone has to say it.
True.
Every single set. There's just a couple jokes that I'm like, I know they're funny, but it's like, man, that's gonna be tough to tell publicly.
You had a couple jokes in there that were like, you can hear the reaction of like laughter or like, oh.
Yeah, and that's a fucking mothership crowd.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a bunch of people that are like, I paid good money to see somebody be racist tonight.
And they're like, bro, calm down.
It's hilarious. The black jokes go hard.
The black jokes go hard.
They do.
That's Rogan's own guy describing Rogan's own venue to Rogan's own face on Rogan's own podcast. Now, if that doesn't tell you something is deeply broken inside the machine, I don't know what to tell you. Now let's talk about Andrew Schulz for a second, because his arc is legit the most instructive case study in this whole story. Andrew had Trump on his podcast in October 2024. The interview went viral, nearly 10 million YouTube views, and critics at the time, including comedians on his own level, said the problem wasn't that he had Trump on. The problem was that he sat there like a golden retriever who just wants to be pet while Trump dodged everything serious. No Epstein questions, no policy accountability, nothing that would make the president uncomfortable.
I didn't like Andrew Schulz having Trump on the pod because I go, well, you're not gonna talk to him about Epstein. You're not gonna talk to him about these things.
He is horrible. He is a terrible interviewer, and his political takes are garbage. So yes, his platform will just be utilized. The problem is now that we don't have the constraint or the monopoly of legacy media, where you had to go on CNN to reach an audience. You had to go on CNN or MSNBC or Fox or whatever. Now, because you can pick between 100 different podcasts, people can self-select and go on the one that's going to be the most friendly.
Of course.
If you can't buy Tim Pool, for example, you can buy the next guy, and there's 99 people after that.
Yeah.
And so politicians just get more and more friendly interviews, and nobody is actually diving into the hardcore issues in the way that alt media used to do. That was its promise.
But that's why
legacy can't talk about this, and so alt media will go into it. And now it's just the opposite. It's more exploitable. It's more exploitable by people with capital.
Now fast forward to 2025, and now he's on his podcast saying,
I believe when Trump, everything he campaigned on, I believe he wanted to do. And now he's doing the exact opposite thing of every single fucking thing.
I don't know what he's done.
There'll be people that they'll DM me and be like, you see what your boy's doing? You voted for this. I'm like, I voted for none of this.
Dude, you voted for all of it. You helped elect the guy, and now you're shocked he's doing the things he said he would do and also the things he definitely did last time? The Atlantic wrote a whole piece about this. The machine Rogan built was so effective at getting Trump elected that it's now being blamed for the consequences of electing Trump. That's a poetic kind of hell. And look, while we're talking about consequences and the complete absence of them, let's take a hot second on Tony Hinchcliffe. You know, the guy who called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage and made racist jokes about Latinos, black people, Jewish people at a presidential rally on live television. Yeah, despite the backlash, his response was, I apologize to absolutely nobody. And then, and this is the part that tells you everything you need to know about the Rogansphere's actual relationship with consequences, Netflix gave him a deal. So the lesson the Rogansphere has apparently learned is the more offensive you are, the more unaccountable you are, the more you double down when called out, the better your career gets. That's not comedy. That's a business model, or really a simple grift built on antagonism. And when your entire brand is the outrage, you need to keep escalating to stay relevant. And that's the treadmill these guys are on. Which brings us to the most ironic development in this whole story. Joe Rogan, the guy who built this whole ecosystem, who interviewed Trump for 3 hours, who attended the inauguration, who endorsed Trump the night before the election. Joe Rogan is now calling himself politically homeless, and I swear to Jeebus, the funniest part was watching him almost say, I've always been politically homeless.
You're just being manipulated, and you're being manipulated by these two teams, and you have to pick a team. You have to decide which team are you on. I hate that. It's so stupid. I'm politically homeless. I've always been I've been politically homeless for a long fucking time. Neither one of them make any sense to me.
Bro, you attended the inauguration. You stood there in the Oval Office. You were the single most effective media force in getting that man elected. The Trump campaign publicly jerked your Jimmy on election night, and now you're politically homeless? The Rogansphere became a magnet for hate not because outsiders decided to hate it. It became a magnet for hate because it cultivated hate as a content and tried to normalize it as peak comedy, rewarded it financially, sent it to the White House, and then got surprised when the very thing it fed came back hungry. So, I mean, you reap what you sow, man, and what got sown here was a lot of shit.